Good morning, everyone. We'll get started now with our final webinar of 5, Pinterest, Instagram, Storify, and Tumblr.
And thank you all for joining us today. We're really excited to be offering our final webinar of 5. So thanks especially to those of you that made it out to a lot of the webinars that we've put together. I think we see Dennis Tom on the line again. So thanks, Dennis.
And Laura.
Yeah, we've also got Quinn and Renee. So really appreciate your participation today. We're going to cover a variety of different platforms that are sort of very much level 2 platforms, meaning, we absolutely encourage you to focus your attention on Facebook and on Twitter before you really seriously consider these for the most part. However, to the extent you do have a strong base with your social media presence on those primary platforms, then there are some really exciting opportunities made available by Pinterest, by Instagram, Storify, and Tumblr in the photo and vlogging space. So we'll get into it, and thanks again. So first off, just really quickly to reiterate, as I mentioned, this is our final webinar of 5. We've already done 4 other webinars, all of which are available. You can watch the YouTube to see the different videos of these webinars. They're all catered specifically towards the Partners in Preservation sites. We started with looking at online contests in general, best practices, how to succeed in Excel, etc. So really looking squarely at this campaign. Then we took a deeper dive into engaging your community. Once you have a base of supporters, how do you get them more engaged? From there, we went into integrating on and offline efforts, especially with a focus on events, Foursquare, Facebook events, etc. And then finally, most recently, we did building a bigger fan base, and this real how-to dig into some of the tools that can be useful from a standpoint of acquiring new supporters. The other piece of our engagement here is one-on-one coaching, which American Express is also generously underwriting and making freely accessible to every site that's participating in the Partners in Preservation campaign. And so if you haven't already signed up for these free one-on-one coaching calls, we really encourage you to do that. Every organization has access to up to 3 calls, and so hopefully some of you have already had some of those. And we certainly encourage you to reach out and take advantage of that. And if you've already done it, sign up for your second call. So let's get into it.
Okay, so we'll get started. We have fewer of you than usual, so we'll make it very interactive and allow you guys an opportunity to pitch in. With that, I'm going to start alphabetically with Chanel, Dennis, Laura, Quinn, and then Renee. I want to know if you have heard of Pinterest and if you're using it at your nonprofit right now. And I'm going to go ahead and unmute you guys. But if you have a lot of background noise, whether it's phones and whatnot, please go ahead and mute yourself when that's the case.
And if for any reason you do not have a microphone on your computer, then go ahead and just send us a question. And we can go ahead and read your comment to the group that way.
All right. So with Chanel, do you have you used Pinterest for your organization? Moving on to Dennis.
And I don't think Dennis has a microphone.
No worries at all. We'll go on to Laura DuBois. Laura, are you using Pinterest at your organization? Janet Jones. I see Laura is using Pinterest. Let's see. All right, they have a couple of good boards up. Good. So 1 or 2 of you have started using Pinterest and have a couple of boards up, which is good. So you're familiar with what it looks like. And I see Quinn, you're not using Pinterest right now. Okay. So, well, this would be really good help. We've muted screenshots, so you'll be able to see what it looks like. We'll get started. Then give me one moment. All right. So Pinterest is a virtual interactive bulletin board. It allows you to pin, just like in real life, it allows you to pin interactive content, pictures, primarily pictures, on different bulletin boards, and it's a very good visual representation. It allows you to drive traffic to those pins. Imagine putting a little cardboard board and putting different images of pictures from cutouts from a wedding magazine or different recipes and stuff. So, and when you put that, the difference between a Pinterest and a regular cardboard pinning board is that it drives traffic to the site or where you got the picture from. So that's the key. The primary audience for this platform is based on the number that they have, is primarily women ages 25 to 44. So the question is Pinterest for you? Can you tell your story with images is the answer. If you are a museum, if you are a historic preservation site that has different aspects that can be presented in pictures, do you appeal to the young and hip crowd? Are you active on Twitter and blogging? And also, finally, are you looking for an SEO boost? If any of these questions are can be answered by a nonprofit, then this is a great platform for you.
And if I could just chime in here real quick, as far as the hipsters, because everybody loves to talk about hipsters, right? You know, it's interesting because if you look at the audience of Pinterest, yes, we do see, you know, those women that Ritu was talking about before. We also see in smaller numbers, but some of the people that are most active on this site tend to be those younger hipsters that are very much in the loop on what's happening in Williamsburg or whatever the case may be, and they want to use Pinterest as the site to identify what's going on. So if you have an audience of folks that you would classify as hipsters, there's a decent chance that they may already be on Pinterest. So it could be a great opportunity for you to connect with those folks or expand that base.
Great, thank you, Darian. So how do you go about building your presence on Pinterest? You build a collage of interests by pinning them to your Pinterest board. It can be done in one of three ways. You use the, and just a heads up, I have screenshots for everything and I'll walk you through, but I'll walk you through the steps verbally first and then you can see the images as well. So you use the pin it button, bookmarklet while surfing. So if you install the bookmarklet, once you set up Pinterest account, anytime you're surfing, for example, if you are looking for great ideas for setting up an exhibition, or in many cases, women are setting up wedding ideas or wedding registry ideas or home decoration ideas. That's where there's a lot of growth right now, but that's an example of how that can be transferred into your work and your sector as well. So you can either pin it while you're surfing the web, you can upload your own images, and then you can repin the images of other users. So you can either start from scratch, you can be looking at different websites and adding bookmarklets, you could be uploading your own images, and then you could be getting inspiration from people who are already doing this. And I have a link that has 50 nonprofits, how they're using Pinterest, and that's a great place for you all to go and review all the 50 sites and see how they're using it and get inspiration from them. And that's a very direct nonprofit use. Co-workers and team members can build a board together with a board edit feature, and it allows you to be main contributors. So it's not just an individual, but it's actually a team. So that's a great way for development professionals or curators or people who work in your visual departments, whether it's marketing or communications. You can post photos of needs. If you're serving if you're an arts institution, and your primary interaction is arts and dance and other classes, you could be putting photos of different art forms or dance forms. You could be putting photographs of progress if you're talking about building a new project with this contest. You could be talking about volunteers and different volunteer duties and using pictures to pin that. Catching images are the key. Final tip. So what's important in Pinterest, for this to be viewed by a lot of people, it's really important that you pick images that are very crisp, very clear, and very catchy, that make you stop and say, oh wow, that's a great picture, or wow, that's a great representation of something. So and when you do that, it encourages other people to take your image, take your pin and put it on their board, and that's how it really spreads. So it's very important to focus on getting attention in Pinterest, because really that's all there is to it. It's all pictures. So if you have pictures that can catch yours and your staff's eyes, you'll go a long way.
And this really goes back to the original point that Ritu made about using this as a tool to not just communicate with your audience, but expand your base of supporters. So if you can use really, sort of not jarring, but just images that people would see and stop in their tracks for a minute to look at, then this could be a really great platform for you.
I think a good example of that is Charity Order. They have some amazing images, incredible images of the work they do. Charity Order is based out of New York City. It works in sub-Saharan Africa and some other countries, providing access to clean water. And they have an amazing selection of pictures of people in need, people suffering from different diseases, dirty water. Their images are powerful, and they speak very, very, very clearly and strongly about the need and the impact that people are going to make by supporting that organization. So look at Charity Water if you do happen to have the time to look at their website.
And the other thing that Charity Water's done really well to sort of establish itself, they've now raised billions of dollars, or excuse me, millions of dollars online, really primarily through social media, is that they actually have a photo of the day, and they'll post one photo every day and then send it out via Twitter, via Pinterest, etc. So this is a great channel to get the word out about amazing photos that you have.
Yeah. So I'm going to walk you through a few screenshots of Pinterest. Pinterest is in beta right now, so you have to get an invitation from somebody. If you email me, my email will be at the end of this session. Or if you want, you can write down Ritu at SM4NP. I will actually, right here. It's Ritu, R-I-T-U, at SM4NP, as you can see on the screen. If you send me an email, I'm happy to send you an invitation to the platform, and that will allow you to experiment with it. But the very first thing you do when you get an invitation is you create a Pinterest account. Basically, you choose a username, put your email, and put a password, and that's as simple as that. There is no extra steps needed there. It takes you to this 3-step process of creating a board. It will it lets you log in based on either your Twitter account or Facebook account. You have to have one or the other in order to use Pinterest. So when you do that, it takes you to this next screen. And it shows you some people in your network, whether it's Twitter or Facebook, whichever you use. It shows you their Pinterest boards, and it lets you follow them right away. It actually automatically follows them, and there is one button that allows you to unfollow all right away, and you can do that. But it basically follows people on your accounts that have a Pinterest board. So it shows you the screen, and then it shows you this, which is it asks you to choose a few things that you're interested about. In your case, it could be art, it could be architecture, it could be photography, it could be history. You could choose any one of these things, and that's the categorization of what you're going to be pinning about, and it shows you people who are in the same area. It shows you boards of other people who are in these areas. So if you're using it for work, these are some of the things that I think you can use. If you're using it for personal, I've seen a lot of women use it, women's apparel, food and drink, gardening, and as you can say, pretty much you name it, anything. It'll ask you next to create a pin board. It'll ask you for the name of the pin board. It could be Dream Home. It could be building up a new room, a new wing in your organization, whatever you want to call it. That's the name of the pin board, and I highly encourage you, if you are going to experiment with it, to call it something like the West Wing expansion, where it actually speaks to organization name dash West Wing, or whatever that expansion is. Whatever you're trying to do with the proceeds from the PIP contest. So you could create a board for that. You could create, and then you put your name of the board, name of the organization, and then you put more information here. Let's see, and then that lets you create. And this is what I was talking about. Add a pin, upload a pin. Add a pin is if you are surfing and you're collecting it from another place. Upload is if you're uploading it from your computer. And this is the other one that lets you start from scratch, create a board if you don't have one already.
And just in terms of the naming thing that Ritu mentioned, this is really important. If you circle back to any of the other webinars that we've done, we always talk about the importance of helping to map donations to impact, really helping your supporters, whether they be voters or people that are joining your social media committee we've talked about, or donors, or whatever the case may be. You always want to help them understand, especially in the social media landscape, what is the impact of their contribution. And so naming this the West Wing Expansion Project, like Ritu said, is really important because it helps them operationalize the impact that they can make possible through their participation.
Okay, and then it takes you to the next one where it talks about information about the nonprofit that's creating that Pinterest board. And then, okay, those are the screenshots. And then it basically creates a screenshot for a board for you. Sorry about that. So this is really important. You are going to have the recorded copy of this, and that's going to be made available by the end of the day, if not tomorrow, by first thing tomorrow. So I highly encourage you, when you see this, or if you want to write down the name right now, I really highly encourage you to write down this link that is on my screen. This is Pinterest by Nolan Hushiner. He's based out of Seattle, Portland area, a very active nonprofit social media friend of ours. And he's put together a collage of he's put together a Pinterest board of 50 good ideas that based on other nonprofits that are using Pinterest. So if you're new to this, there's nothing like looking at what other people are doing in a new platform like this, and taking inspiration from them. And I went through most of the websites on that, and each of them is a very different, unique use. Some are using it for fundraising, some are using it for volunteering, some are using it for speaking to the impact that their organization is making with the work that they're doing. So this is a really good resource for you to look at. And I'm going to give you just another half a minute or just a few more seconds for you all to copy this in case you want to get started right away by looking at how nonprofits are using Pinterest. And we'll get into Instagram. How many, by raise of hands, we'll use the platform this time. How many, by a raise of hands, are using or have installed Instagram on their phones? We'll see by a quick show of hands. I see Alyssa, Quinn. As you know, Instagram just got bought by Facebook for $1 billion. Incredible. It's a very new platform, and it's coming up. Instagram it was primarily on Apple iPhone, and they recently released, I think 2nd April, very recently they introduced the Android application for that. So more people can experiment and experience the work that Instagram does. Instagram is, as I said, an iPhone, iPad, iTouch app. It enables you to apply 11 filters and location data to photos and create high-quality images. And I don't know if you have seen what it does, but it allows an ordinary person in an ordinary photograph to be transformed into looking a very artistic image by use of one of these 11 filters. One of our friends was telling us about an entire exhibit of Instagram photos. There is a huge Instagram community. It's really a big community of people who are photographers and who are working on furthering their knowledge and experimenting with this app to create great images. So it's perfect for organizations like museums or training centers and such, because you could be taking those pictures and applying one of the filters and first of all putting it on the Instagram community where people are very religious about following each other and appreciating good photos, but also using that on your Facebook, on your Twitter, to drive traffic, because pictures get a lot more response than just plain text or statement. And if pictures that are filtered through Instagram, some great pictures can elicit a lot of great engagement and comments from your audience. So it has a lot of benefit. I encourage you, if you have the access to an iPhone or iPad or an Android phone, to experiment with this. The thing about Instagram, which is really good and very that they've done really well, is you can share your pictures with Facebook, Twitter, Flickr, Tumblr, Foursquare, Pinterest, all of these platforms in one click. Instead of changing it and logging into one or the other and doing it, it allows you to place a picture in any of these networks or all of these networks if you're active in it in one click. So which is really, really efficient. It gives you it's a great way to make a big splash, and it allows you very quick feedback if you have great pictures, and people will either love them or they won't, and you know right away what kind of images resonate with your audience. So experiment. We're going to go through a little how-to of how to do this. You could download it, and I'm going to do like really step-by-step. So if you haven't used it or you're not familiar with it at all, you could simply just follow the steps laid out here in the screenshots, and you'll have a sense of familiarity. So for Instagram, you download the app from iTunes or the App Store for an iPhone, and it's called Google Play or Play Store now on Android. It used to be called Market. Very recently they changed the name of their App Store, but anything that's an Apple equivalent of App Store, whether it's Google Play or Google Work. And then once you install that app on your phone or your iPad, or whether it's an Apple or Android, you launch the app on your home screen. This is how it looks like. You'll just tap on it to launch it. It will show you a sign up button at the bottom of your screen, and you'll enter your very basic information to create an account. If you're using it for the first time, that is. Email, username, password. You can choose to put a personal photo, whether it's yours or one of your own photos that you'd like to have as your representation, and your phone number, but it's optional. But the required information is email, username, password. Love it when that's all they ask for. This is what the sign-up screen looks like. And then you just click share to snap or select photos. When you click, let's see, give me one moment. Yeah, you click share to snap or select photos. So it's just like your photo tool on most smartphones, where you're clicking share and or clicking snap and then choosing where to share. In this particular case, you click or tap on share. It allows you to either take a new photo or use an existing photo from your phone. You can apply filters. There are 11 filters. You can choose one of the 11 filters, and then you click next. And this is what it looks like. You've taken a picture. At the bottom of that screen, let me see if you can see my mouse. It shows you all the different filters. You can experiment with these different filters and tap on them to see what it makes a picture look like. In this case, it's a red filter. You can see all of these. It makes the pictures look like antique old pictures, more artsy pictures, black and white pictures. So experiment with what is the best treatment for your picture. And sometimes there isn't a treatment necessary. You use it as is. And then and then you go next, which is right here. It's very intuitive, step by step. There's only two things you could do. You could either go back and forward, or you can apply a filter. So it's a very clean and simple interface. Once you become active in Instagram and you start using Instagram actively, you will collect quite a few pictures. There's an app called Instaport. You can use that to download all your photos to your computer, and you may want to back up periodically. That way you have it on a central location and not just on your phone and clog the memory, and you can delete those once you've Instaported them.
And this is also really important if those photos are important to your organization. The last thing you want to do is get very active on a platform like Instagram, but then be reliant on your phone or your computer. So having things backed up is a really great way to sort of, ensure that that doesn't ever get lost.
Wonderful. So Instaport is another app. It's created primarily for a simple export of all your Instagram pictures to either other social services or your local hard drive. So I recommend downloading that periodically. We'll get into Storify next, but before we do that, anybody have any questions about Instagram so far? And you can use the questions platform for that. Okay, and I see there's no questions. We will continue forward with Storify. How many of you have heard of Storify? With a raise of hands, please. Carl, okay. And how many of you have used Storify? I'm going to actually give you 1 second. Okay, now how many of you have actually used Storify? Good. So you've heard of it, but it looks like most of you have not used it. Okay. I use Storify pretty extensively. There are many uses of it. There are many uses of Storify. Storify is a way of curating different social content in one place. And I have a question from Melissa, and I'm going to go ahead and answer that right now, just in case if anybody else has that question too. Alyssa is asking, she missed the first few minutes of the session, and she wanted to know about the difference between Tumblr and something like Instagram or Pinterest. So these are secondary platforms or platforms that add on and enhance your primary platforms, which are your Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and blogs. Those are sort of your primary pillars of your social media strategy. Now these things, whether it's Instagram, Pinterest, Storify, or Tumblr, they are additional ways for you to interact. Let me set the Pinterest is used primarily for pinning visual content, pictures, primarily pictures. If you are an organization that's heavy on pictures, you can use Pinterest for that. If you are, Instagram is an app for smartphones that allows you to take photos just like a camera, but it is more handy because you always have your phone, but you don't always have your camera. So it's a great app for you to capture photos and edit them and modify them in a very, and enhance them with filters. And by filters, they mean special effects, and use that. So that's the purpose of Pinterest. Then Instagram. Storify is where we are right now. Storify is a way to curate and make stories, and we'll get into the details, but it's basically creating it's a place where you can bring, you can create sort of a complete picture or story about an issue, about an event, about what your organization does, and bring in different aspects. And we'll get into that in just a moment. But broadly, it's a place for you to curate stories and make stories. And a storyboard particularly, it's really a place for making a storyboard. And we'll get into the details of this in just a moment. And the final piece is Tumblr. Tumblr is a microblogging platform. It is a sort of a step before you get into a more robust blogging platform. If you don't have a robust blogging platform like WordPress, and you're not quite there to set up, create a theme, and make it have the branding for your organization, and have capability and capacity to put regular content on your website, then you can experiment with Tumblr as a way to get started on blogging and joining that blogging community. But specifically with Tumblr, it's really an add-on that I recommend. It's useful in very specific cases, and based on a conversation with many of you in the room, I can tell you that give me 1 second. I can tell you that it's not very applicable to many people. So I hope that answers your question and sets the context for the conversation as to what these 4 platforms are capable of. And this may help you kind of understand where we're going and how each of these fit in your strategy. So I hope I answered your question. Okay, we'll go into Storify. So it's a way of creating a storyboard with social media. It's a place where you can curate your tweets, your Facebook posts, your images, your PowerPoints, all in one place. And I'll show you a couple examples of this. And I'll share my example of how I use it and how I've seen other people do it. I've seen journalists use it. What I use it for is I'm a conference planner, and during my conferences, it's a social media conference, so during my conferences, I create a storyboard. And in that storyboard, while the conference is going on, and this is how this relates to you is during an event, you can create a storyboard while a person is, your online or social media strategist is live, and they're curating content. So what it does is you can put, by dragging and dropping tweets that are being published about your event, comments from other people, photos. You could be sitting there in the room snapping pictures and dropping it all in one place. So it's like a good magazine article, but there's a picture, there's a link, there's a story, there are quotes from other people. So that's how you use it around events pretty extensively. One moment. You can search multiple social media platforms from one place inside Storify. You can drag an individual element, whether it's a tweet that you're looking at, a Facebook post, a picture, a video, a PowerPoint, and you can give it a title. You can drop that in there, reorder elements, and add text for context of what was being said, and create a flow in that storyboard. Why bother? Well, it's a great way to cut through the clutter, especially in my case as a conference planner. If somebody is coming to my event or somebody missed my event, they can, if I created a good storyboard, they can just go to my Storify and see sort of the flow of the day. I usually start with a couple quotes from people that are on Twitter. I drop a PowerPoint. I give a context about that PowerPoint. I drop a few tweets about that presentation that's going on. I drop a couple pictures in there, and it sort of creates this flow for a person who either is there and wants to review it later and jog his memory without taking extensive notes, or tells a person who's not in the room what's going on. And the benefit is, if I'm a lay person and I want to go and see what happened at an event, I am looking at Facebook to see everybody's pictures. I'm going to Twitter to see all kinds of tweets. I'm going to SlideShare or another platform to see all the handouts and slides. And when I'm doing that as a person, and each of you as a nonprofit employee or worker, you know how limited your time is. You're going through 100 pictures to see 2 or 3 that you really wanted to see. You're cutting through the clutter of hundreds of tweets about an event to catch some salient points. And this helps you to kind of, it summarizes it for you, or it summarizes it for your audience. So become a trusted curator. Your job, and when you use Storify at your organization, is to catalog and capture the day that gives somebody a pretty clear picture of what was going on. It is in beta, and you need an invitation for this as well. My email, as you all know, is ritu@sm4np.org. Please send me a note, and I will be happy to give you an invitation through the platform so you can experiment with it and try it. And it's successful and it works because people love stories. People really do love stories about events, about fundraising drives, about the impact that they're making. I gave you an example that I use extensively, and I think with many of you hosting lectures and events, you could also use that, but there are many other uses for that, and I encourage you to experiment with that. So this is what it looks like. Let's do a little screenshot here. So when you go to Storify, this is how it looks like. You can enter a headline for your story, and it could be open house for partners in preservation. You enter a little description, and it says, we are hosting a garden party, or we are hosting a lunch and learn, whatever is the format or the name of your open house, you can put that there. And then this right-hand side where my mouse is, this is where you start collecting stories. If you are live, you can check on Twitter. If you're using a hashtag, whatever the hashtag of your organization is, you can enter that and you'll see all the tweets right here about those, about the conversations that are taking place around that hashtag. And you would just literally drag and drop right here. Just literally click and drag and drop right here. A couple, and then once you're inside here, you can drag and drop right here as well. You can go to YouTube if you have a PSA or an appeal that your organization did, an awards video. You can go to that, enter the name of the video, or search for your organization, drop that video right in here. You can do photographs from Flickr. You can do photographs from Instagram. You can do links. So if you're looking for a PDF, or you're looking for a document that was given out as a handout and you know the link, you can even take this and drop it in here, and that's your link. Let me give you another use of it. A lot of times I create these stories for our attendees. When you attend any kind of training and you're representing your organization, whether it's a fundraising training, social media training, any kind of live event, you can create a storyboard that you can share with your staff when you come back, and give them a pretty good picture of what happened at that event. You can. This is a great way for you to take notes, make sure all your, what a great learning experience if you go to a training or a conference, which many of us do, and come back and see all the different things that took place, notes that are relevant to you, pictures that are relevant to you. Especially if it's an industry event, you could create an entire blog based on the information you collected here. And just by the act of collecting and curating that story, you will also have reinforced the learning you did because you were actively using it and writing and talking about it. So this is a great place. And here's another final benefit of that. When you create a good Storify board at a training or an event, and whether it's for your purpose or for staff back in the office, and you share that, there's a way in it to share it with everybody that commented or whose tweets you used, number one. So it automatically, there's a way for you to do one-click thank you for commenting or providing tweets, and I quoted you in my story. The other is, there's a secondary benefit that I have seen, is when I've used Storify like that and added value, it's a great deal of value to somebody to collect all this meaningful data and be removed from the clutter and have it in one simple place where I can go and see every slide, every handout, every picture, every tweet that's relevant. I see a lot of people start following me after that at an event. I try to do it live, and I try to post it by the end of the day before I leave the venue. So in Twitter, things get spread very quickly, and by the time I leave that place, I have 20 to 50 followers that are following me. And that's a really good benefit of adding value, creating a good learning, and taking something back, and establishing your thought leadership, and establishing how well you use these platforms, and gaining some followers at the same time, even though that was definitely not one of the intended results. So in this slide, you can see I have a slideshow. I drag that into here. In this slide, you can see one of my completed storyboards. It has the title, what I'm doing. So it's tweets, photos, slides, and highlights from our November 17th event. First speaker, their presentation, comments about them, photos about them, and then I go on to the next and the next. And then at the end of the day, if you see my mouse right here, I can share it with anybody I want through social platforms. I can email it, or I can embed it in a website or a blog also. Alrighty. we are moving at full speed. Anybody have any questions before we move forward? If you just let me know, I'm happy to, if you raise your hand, I'm happy to unmute your mic, or you can send me a question via the platform. What is the reach of Pinterest, Storify versus Tumblr? Let me answer the question for Alyssa. Each of these platforms are niche platforms. Pinterest, for example, right now is one of the fastest growing social media networks. It's very, very actively used by women. So it's over, I think it's about 30 million people. I think it's a little over 30 million people. Instagram is right around 25, 30 as well. 25, 30 million active users, not just users, but active users.
And so just to contextualize that, that's about 10% of the audience of Twitter, which is 250 million active users that have used it in the last 30 days. And then it's, I guess it'd be, you know, maybe 3% of Facebook's audience, which is 850 million in the last 30 days.
And again, those numbers, especially when you start talking about, you know, millions of numbers and stuff, it's really not about, sometimes it's not really, like for example, Storify. It's not as much about its reach as it's about its application and the value it can add. If it is applicable to your organization, it may not be. So I would look at all these platforms and apps that we're talking about, not necessarily from just how many more people I can reach, because anybody that's using these platforms, to be perfectly honest, they're probably already on Twitter and Facebook.
Most definitely.
Most definitely. But this is the way for you to take it to the next level and show some of the things that that your organization is doing and adding value, or making it more interactive for those people that are already connected to you through those networks. So even though reach is very important, I think what is even more important is how well you use these platforms. Is this the right fit for your organization? And does it allow you, even if it is to a smaller percentage of people, does it allow you to communicate your message in an effective and impactful way? And if that answers, you know, go right ahead and use it. It doesn't matter how many or how few, because whoever you touch and convert or engage in your work, that's a big benefit. And we'll keep on moving. Tumblr. This is the final one. We included Tumblr because we hear from a lot of people about Tumblr, and everybody's hearing this a lot. So we wanted to give you a little bit of exposure on Tumblr, so you're familiar with what it is and what its some of the key core capabilities are, and you can make a decision whether you want to experiment or not. But of all the platforms or the apps that we discussed today, I would say this is sort of the least important one. So if you do have a limited amount of time, I recommend that you experiment with something like Instagram or Pinterest before you do with this, because this is a much smaller platform and much more limited in scope, not just in number but in scope, and we'll go into why. So it's used for content sharing and storytelling. So it's a microblogging platform. So it's basically a platform for blogging. If you don't have a blog on your website and you're looking for a blogging community, this is one way to do that. It's an online, just like Blogspot or blogger.com. It's a blogging community. It's geared towards shorter behind-the-scene posts compared to long blog posts. It does really well. This platform does really well between. It does really well in smaller, shorter posts. It fills the gap between social networks, which are really, really shorter, 140 characters, or 2 sentences, or 3 sentences, and so on, and big blogs like WordPress. It's a great way to attract new audience. The thing about Tumblr, besides being a blogging platform, is that it has a big community. And that's what you're going after when you go to Tumblr, is people form communities around issues, and you can tap into that if you have the time and bandwidth after you do other things that are more important, to tap into those communities. You can create micro communities around preservation of nautical institutions or nautical museums, preservation of creative arts and performance theaters, creative, and other similar communities, whatever that may be in your case. It's great for multimedia bloggers. It's great for people who are not looking to write really lengthy blogs, who are looking to use more multimedia. So text, photo, code, link, chat, audio and video. So people who use all of those. This is kind of closer to Storify in terms of what it can be used in, depending on what your purpose is. Followers and Tumblr can comment, like, and reblog your blog. So there's several opportunities for you to interact with and attract followers in Tumblr. It is the biggest criticism that I found personally was it is not as scalable as WordPress. And I think it's really important to have a conversation about that when we're specifically talking about Tumblr and giving you our recommendation on it. If you as a nonprofit are planning on starting a blog and putting a lot of resources in it and you're tapped, I would look into WordPress because it can be scaled and made into a much bigger venture over a period of time. Tumblr, on the other hand, has limited use. But if Tumblr is in addition to your blog, primarily to tap those communities, then it's a great thing. But if that's what you're planning on kind of starting with and grooming your main organization blog to be, I would caution you against that because we wouldn't recommend spending a lot of time and resources in building something that doesn't have the potential to be scaled in many ways as a free platform like WordPress can.
And WordPress, just so you know, is also a free tool. And even if you just go to the Social Media for Nonprofits website, you'll see our blog is done through WordPress, as is our entire website.
Yeah, but that's another benefit of more robust blogging platforms like WordPress. With WordPress, it's an open platform, open source platform. It's free. With WordPress, you have many different widgets that have been created that support. So there are a lot of different small software pieces, whether it is Google Analytics, whether it is a Flickr tool or social tools. There are many different tools that have been developed to layer on top of that. And that's another criticism of Tumblr is that they don't have that many tools layered on top of that. Whether it's a weather or a calendar or a date, pretty much anything you can think of can be layered on top of WordPress and it's already available either for free or for very nominal. There's a whole ecosystem of different apps and widgets and applications that have been built to operate on top of WordPress. So that's why it's a very, very robust and scalable. And that's not to discourage you from trying Tumblr, but I want you to just be realistic in terms of if this is your primary blog and this is what you're going to groom and position as your final piece, I would look at other options. But if you already have it and you want to just primarily look into tapping into your community, if you know that your audience, and we've talked to many of you on phone one-on-one in trying to decide who that audience is, what their profession is, what is their age group, you can look into those kind of communities at Tumblr and see if they exist in that. And if your niche is there, you can create a small blog and repurpose your main blog and put pictures and stuff and try to tap that community. But like I said, pretty much anybody that is on any of these platforms is already on Facebook and Twitter before they get here, whether it's an audience or it is an organization like us. Pretty much on both sides of the equation, they're on those networks. So I'm going to walk you through a few small screenshots of Tumblr so you can familiarize yourself as to what it looks like. Once you log in, it gives you these choices of creating your first blog with your dashboard. It allows you to do a text, photo, a quote, a link, chat, audio, or video. So it lets you choose one of the many of these ways that you can create your blog, or all of these if you choose to. You can do a public blog or a private. Public is a default. If you don't want it to be a public blog, you have to actually physically change it to a private blog. You can choose a theme or design appearance for your blog. There are lots of built-in appearances or built-in looks that you can choose from. And you can choose the click appearance link from the dashboard and you can add Google Analytics. So you can see how many people are visiting, where they're coming from, how are they finding out about your Tumblr, and so on. Okay, that is the end of Tumblr. We are going to do some activities with you and answer some questions. This is our final session for webinars. We'll still be doing coaching calls with each of you. But before we move into perhaps giving you the mic or question platform to ask any questions, does anybody have questions about Tumblr or anything else we've covered today? Okay, I am going to unmute Laura. I think Laura has a question. And I'm reading Alyssa's question. I know Alyssa has a question. I'm reading that, and I'll be... okay, so I have questions from Laura, and I'm going to reply that one. Laura is wondering about signing up for Instagram. Are you wondering how to do it, or is it worth it? And I'm going to unmute you, Laura, so you can actually ask your question. And I'm not sure if you have a mic, but if you don't, then you can just go ahead and send me the text.
So let me just start talking in case. Okay.
Okay, so Laura, let me answer the question about Instagram. Instagram is not, even though it is a community, so the question about Instagram is, it is about getting multiple pages. And Laura and I have had a couple of conversations about Foursquare and Facebook, and I think we've had this conversation with a couple of you in the chat room about having multiple pages. Some people have had a personal Facebook page or Facebook page as an organization but created as a profile. Some people have multiple check-ins created by different people for Foursquare, and her question is, do you have to be an individual to create it? In this case, yes, it is an individual platform. It is really an application on how to do pictures. And then by joining Instagram, you also end up joining the community of photographers or people, amateur or professional. So there is, but it's not like Foursquare or Facebook, where those are your primary identity platforms. This is primarily a support platform for you. So yes, you can create Instagram, you can download Instagram, you can use it as a personal app and use pictures from it. You can also, if you know you're not creating it for personal use, in the name of when you enter your first name, last name, you can enter your organization name. Unfortunately, like many platforms, it hasn't created a way for organizations to create a presence. So what you could do is, if you wanted the images to show up as from your organization, XYZ nonprofit instead of Laura device, you could then create in your first name, last name, you couldn't put an organization's name, but just so you know, that's how a lot of social networks got started, where they were just primarily individual, and then they introduced an organizational membership. But at this point, depending on what you're going to use it for, you could create it either way. You can create it personal or in person, but organization's name, even though that turned out to be something that Facebook doesn't allow anymore. But for Instagram, you're just posting, you want to post pictures. It's important for you to post pictures from the organization and not from the staff name. Okay, and let's see, I've answered Laura's question. I'm going to go on to Alyssa's question. Alyssa is asking, if you want to tell a long-term story, for example, like opening of a building, what is the better platform? For example, how many pins or images per story are we allowed? Could I be telling one story in 365 days, mostly in images? Or is that better for a blog? And can WordPress include images, Instagram, so that works in the same way that Storify or Pinterest do, with the added ability to add video? It's a long question, but I'll try to answer it. Give me 1 second.
And let me just chime in at first, which is to say, Alyssa, to the extent you have the capacity, all of these platforms could definitely be used to help tell a big story like that, like creating a new building. I think the reality is, and getting to the heart of your question is, if you have limited capacity, how do you decide which of these platforms to prioritize if you've got a long-term, complicated story with different types of media involved?
Yeah, and it's really about figuring out what is the best medium and what is the right amount of information. What you don't want to do, even if you find the perfect platform where you could do 365 days of the story, the first thing to realize and be very cognizant of is people have a very short attention span. So be careful on how you spend the time in creating pins or stories or Storify, and create it in a way that people don't, it's like going on somebody's Facebook album of 1,000 images or 500 images. Sometimes a story is better told in chapters instead of one long narration. So you may want to create groundbreaking. Go ahead.
Is that okay?
Hardware.
Yeah.
Give me 1 moment. Okay. So you may want to create a story that's broken down in chapters, and you can do that in a blog where you can include Instagram images, you can include videos, you can include quotes from people and put it in quotation. It's totally okay to do that in a blog. You could do that in a picture if it's primarily just pictures. Then and now, a journey from, from a historic building which has been restored and made a beautiful museum. You can do chapters of 10 years or something like that. So this has some context for people, and it allows them to get to skip through your story at a pace and a time that they have, and it's not they don't have to spend hours to kind of get the gist. It's really about telling your story in a way that is aware and cognizant of the attention economy we live in. You only have a limited time, so you want to say it in a way that it makes the most impact.
And I guess specifically to answer your question in terms of which platform would be most appropriate given limited resources, it does depend on a variety of factors. Number one is if you do have some really great photography associated with, creating a new building, for example, then something like Instagram or Pinterest could be really great, especially Instagram where it's your own photos, whereas Pinterest, for the most part, the community is kind of a mix of people posting their own photos and then also grabbing some from the internet, whereas Instagram is really about people sharing their own photography. So that could be really useful. And then certainly a blog, as Ritu mentioned, could make a lot of sense just from a standpoint of like a weekly update or a monthly update or something like that. And that would probably be something we would encourage you to use WordPress for. Versus Tumblr, as Ritu mentioned, which is a little bit more limited in its capacity. And then in terms of where something like Storify could come in, maybe, it's not every month like the blog is, but maybe every quarter or, once a year at the end of the build being complete, you can kind of do a snapshot, sort of the year in review of everything that went into the building, grab a couple tweets, a couple of the images off of Instagram or whatever the case may be, and tell that year-long story in a very concise format. So I hope that's helpful, and I just got a note from you saying that's very helpful. So glad to hear that. Thanks so much, Alyssa.
Anybody else have any questions about what we covered today or other things that we have covered so far and you're struggling with something? This is an open platform and it's a community of support. Maybe what your problem, no matter how big or small you're having with a platform or a technical issue, others might also be having. So please feel free to ask any questions that you have right now. And we'll give it a couple minutes. And see if anybody has any other questions. Again, it could be about what we covered today. It could be about stuff that that we've covered in the past webinars. I'll give it another minute or two, and if there are none, we'll get into an exercise, and we'll give each of you an opportunity to comment and share. If you have the mic, you can use your mic. If you don't have the mic, you can use your question platform for this. What was one thing that you learned throughout the webinars that you didn't know and you found very helpful? And you, of course, when we do give you the mic, you're welcome to ask any questions as well. But we'll go down the line. We'll start with Carl, Chanel, Dennis, Alyssa, Janet, Laura, Quinn, and then Renee. We'll go down alphabetically, but let us know one thing that you learned that you didn't know before and you were glad that you attended one of these webinars and learned about a new platform or a new tactic or something. And take a minute to reflect if you need.
And so again, we're going to start with Carl in just a moment, and then Chanel, really just sharing something that you've learned through the webinars and the campaign in general to date.
And it could be something you researched on your own too. And if many of you are attending sporadically, so as your schedule permits, during the course of Partners in Preservation, if you learned something about something that you didn't know, we'd be, please share it with us. And if you don't have a mic, definitely, send in your question or your comment through the questions platform.
So it looks like Carl doesn't have a mic. So yeah, Carl, if you want to just shoot us a question through the platform, then we can go ahead and answer your question that way, or just share on your behalf something that you've learned throughout the course of the campaign.
What about Chanel? Chanel Christopher, I'm going to unmute you. Do you have a comment or a question? Oh, I see. Chanel, let me repeat what Chanel said. She learned the importance of social media and how difficult it can be to do alone. But you couldn't have said it any better. It is actually very important. It levels the playing field between you and a large nonprofit or large corporation. It affords you a very similar opportunity to capture the audience by use of these low barrier to entry platforms, but it does take time. Time is a prime commodity in the nonprofit sector when many of us do multiple jobs in our organization. It can also be very overwhelming to do a lot of these things. Yeah, so we agree with you, Chanel. Let's see, Quinn. Quinn had heard about Storify but wasn't familiar with the details of the platform. Good, and she's she found it interesting, and she's interested in using it for her institution. Quinn, good luck with that. I'm happy to send you a couple of links of how I have used it. Take a look, experiment. If you need an invitation to the platform, definitely send me an email. My email is on the screen, and happy to walk you through or answer any questions you may have about Storify.
And again, one of the points Ritu made earlier that's really important is one of the easiest ways to start dabbling with this platform is just to use it as an opportunity and as a platform to basically document something like this webinar or a conference that you go to, etc., where you take different PowerPoints, different images, tweets, Facebook posts, what have you, and then put them into one sort of concise narrative, basically. And so let's go to Carl's question, because he said that he learned it takes planning and thinking in order to be successful in the social media landscape. And Carl, that's a really great point. All too often we see organizations that are just kind of diving in the deep end of trying to use some of these platforms, but aren't really taking the time to identify really the answer to a fundamentally simple question, but it's something we don't ask ourselves enough as a sector, which is, what does success look like? How will we know if we've accomplished what we're setting out to? And the whole point is, if you don't swing the bat, you can't hit the ball, but you need to know what you're aiming for. And so putting in that planning time in order to really set a vision of what success looks like is absolutely something that's crucial to success.
And to add to that, I think it does take planning and a lot of thinking to get ahead in this, but it also is a moment for reflection. It is to analyze your personal and your organization's capacity and your bandwidth, and in deciding where do you have the most opportunity to make the impact or to communicate your message, and picking and choosing and not trying to be all and doing everything. It's about picking one or two, starting with that and doing it well, and then adding on, because the sure shot recipe for failure and also getting extremely overwhelmed in this sector, or in this space, I should say, is to take on too much too quickly without much support. Take the time to decide what's right for you, experiment with it, spend a dedicated amount of time as you do it for the PIP contest, but also going forward, make time for yourself and your staff on the calendar to have a learning period, which is an hour a week or something, where you're discussing blogs, or you're taking time to read some reading materials about the platform of choice, and being very mindful and intentional instead of running in all directions and burning in all directions. Really being strategic and patient and thoughtful and mindful and present, and taking time to just commit to something and go ahead with that. I see there's a comment from Renee. She says they're new to social media and have tried some of the tactics to increase audiences in the first webinar, and they yielded immediate, if modest, results. Wonderful. That's great to hear that Renee and her institution tried some of the things that they learned in the first webinar, and they have yielded some results. And initially, while you're experimenting, some of the things will be modest, and you will start to notice what works, what your audience responds to, and what doesn't work. And your goal is to do more and more of what works and less of what doesn't work. And let's see, we have one from Alyssa, and she says it takes incredible forethought and time to create a voice and an excellent social media presence that matches our identity. Also rethinking our staffing needs around it, in some ways can be balanced by the fact that social media is general marketing and audience development for no cost. We're going slow and really trying to be deliberate about our presence. Wonderful. That's great. It does take time to get it right, but make room for not just the voice, but for the voices, and let this be a collaborative and collective process in your organizations, where you or that marketing person is not the only one that's shouldering the burden, for multiple reasons. One, it reflects the true personality of your organization, which is not one person's personality, it's all of you together. And the other thing is, if that person decides to go to college tomorrow or leave or find a new job, your organization is not left with the empty store phenomenon that Darren calls. Any and every one of you are playing an important role in social media. So it is fundamentally is very different than how our current modern workplaces operate, which is everybody has a very discrete, defined job. Everybody knows what their territory is, and nobody steps on anybody else's toes, and is very politically correct. But social media is beyond that. It really is a collaborative effort. It isn't where this is my job or your job. It is how each of you add to the voice of your organization, just as each of you add to the impact of your organization, and letting that be shown. Don't try to create a perfect, controlled voice for your organization. Let it be what it is, which is a reflection of each and every one of you at your work.
I think that's a great point, Ritu, and I think just to add a couple things there. Absolutely, not just the voice, but the voices, because ultimately, in fundraising they say people give to people, but that's also true in terms of engagement and getting people to vote for you in the campaign. Is that people respond more effectively to individual voices than to an organization. And the more voices you have, the more personality you have, the more people that can potentially connect to you based on what gels with them. So that's really important. And just to underscore something else that Ritu touched on is, in addition to the whole empty store phenomenon of your social media person goes back to school or gets another job, it's also, fundamentally, this is a new way of running your organization, is embracing the social media landscape. And it is really important for as many people, if not everyone, in the organization to have a direct sense of how this world works. And at the same time, to divide the work up among as many people as possible. Many hands make light work. And if everybody is on Twitter or Facebook, they could spend 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a week. And if you add that up between everyone, that covers the amount of exposure and content that you need to have in place. So glad to hear again that Renee had some great results. And as far as Carl's comment, this is really exciting. Carl actually sharing that his Facebook likes went up by over 20% over the past week. So that's wonderful. Congratulations, Carl. I'm really curious, as a follow-up question, what do you think was the single biggest contributor to such a substantial increase in your Facebook audience? I'm sure that the rest of the folks would love to know, and we would love to hear if it's something that you discovered through online research or through these webinars or coaching call. What was it that allowed you to kind of take your efforts to the next level? And in the meantime, while we're waiting for you to kind of write us back in, here we go. Posted interesting and fun comments and photos. That's great. Wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. The key here is being engaging. You want to be the life of the party. You want to be the person at the cocktail party who's not only talking about himself, but also telling great jokes and sharing really fascinating stories, and doing it with kind of media appropriateness. So posting photos and videos, whatever the case may be. So that's really wonderful to hear, Carl. The other thing that he shares, by the way, is that he answers every comment. And we talked about this in quite a few of the webinars, is just, making sure that if somebody retweets your Twitter post, that you're writing them back to say thanks for the RT, for the retweet. If someone's posting something on your Facebook wall, on your page, that you're commenting on it. And that anybody else that comments, that you're engaging in that conversation. So really glad to hear that you're joining in the conversation and that it's delivering immediate and significant results for you and your organization, Carl. Congratulations.
Congratulations. And just to underscore that point, it's been made really well by Darian. But kind of for other people who are wondering what engagement looks like, I want you to kind of visualize going into a cocktail party, somebody asking you or complimenting you on your outfit or your hair or something, or recent accomplishment you had, or you made a comment. Imagine just staying there silent and not answering back. We wouldn't do that in our personal lives, but somebody comments, compliments, reaches out to us and says, hey, I like that thing that you shared the other day on your email, or you sent me this great email with. Would you stand there and not respond to that? No, that's the social etiquette. You would respond, and it's just normal. You would respond, you'll engage, you'll talk, you'll add on to the conversation. Don't think of social media just because you're not standing right next to each other that you're communicating with machines. You're communicating with just as real people as you are in these, whether it's workplace or cocktail party or work events. So treat social media just as much like those live events where your action and your steps reflect what you would do in real life, that you would comment back. You'd also find something to ask them. So how have your kids been? If somebody says, oh, how are your kids doing? I see you were taking them to football or something. You won't say thanks and then move on. You say, oh, great, thanks. I had a great time, this and that. How are your kids doing? Have a conversation that's a two-way conversation. And if you start looking at social media as a real-life interaction and not machines talking to each other, you will see that the right thing and the effective thing and the thing that takes your efforts to the next level will come naturally. Alrighty, any other questions? Looks like we might have extra 10 minutes on our Fridays. Any other questions?
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for, as what we mentioned is the final webinar of our 5-webinar series. Again, we will be sending out the link both for this webinar as well as all of the other ones, and Siri will be sending that out shortly. So be on the lookout for that. If you haven't already set up a coaching call, we really encourage you to take advantage of that free resource. Basically, it's 1 hour of our time, one-on-one, specifically focused on you and your organization and your needs, and connecting you to useful resources and best practices. So we are very much at your disposal, and it's an honor to support each and every one of your work. So we look forward to speaking with you in those coaching calls. If you have set up an initial call, we enjoyed speaking with all of you, and We're looking forward to our second and our third calls with some of you. So again, please reach out through the link or just email us directly if that's easier for you. So thank you so much for your time and for all of your great work in the community. And we look forward to speaking with you all soon individually.
Yes, thank you very much. And please know that regardless of how the contest turns out, each and every one of you is a winner. You have all learned something new. You've ventured out into areas that you perhaps didn't venture out before. And that alone is the big winning. And but beyond that, I wish you all very good luck and look forward to working with you all on the PIP contest. Have a great day, everyone. Have a good weekend.
The organizer has ended